So today we're going to be talking about Artblock and also imposter syndrome and how they affect us and some of my thoughts about it and hopefully some ways of overcoming it as well. For me, Artblock has been very tough, especially for writing, but also for drawing, where it feels like nothing is coming. And there's so many videos online about Artblock, and this isn't like the magic pill or the magic answer, but something that's helped me a ton is just deciding to take a step forward and move forward and try working on something. If I'm not doing very well in writing, then I'll go and work on something in Blender or sketch something for a bit, or even just step away and like watch an animated show. Because a lot of times with Artblock, you need to make sure that you are filling up your creative bank account, as Jake Parker calls it, or also that you are filling up that well that you can take inspiration out of. And it's important that you're refueling. I think it was Andy J. Pizza talked about it in his podcast, but he's like, imagine you're driving a car and your car runs out of gas, but you have no understanding of what that means. Like, you didn't realize that a car needed gas. Like, just imagine that. Like, you'd be freaking out. You're like, what is wrong with this car? Like, it's been driving fine and now it's not driving, and I have no clue why. Like, maybe the gauge is broken. It says like it's still at a pretty good amount, and you're like, I have no clue why. And that's what Artblock can sometimes feel like. But it's important to realize that, or like burnout, that you're gonna burn out. And it's important that you refuel and you take a break to rest. Like when you go and get gas, you don't usually just fill up the car. Like maybe sometimes you do, but maybe you go inside, grab a snack, or use the restroom real quick. You take that time to take a break. And it's important to do that in art and as an artist and as a creative as well. With imposter syndrome, it's a little bit tougher because basically what imposter syndrome is, if you don't know, it's when a lot of times when you've had a lot of experience in something and you've learned a lot about it, like you've learned a lot about being an artist or being a writer or being a creative or whatever, but you feel like an imposter. You feel like any day now someone's gonna pull off your mask and it's gonna be like, hey, you're not an artist, or you're not a creative, you're not super good at what you do. It was all just like a scam and a sham. And you feel like you're not gonna fit in. And there's so many stories I've heard about this, and where everyone there kind of feels that way. Like when I was in art school, looking back, I realized that probably a lot of people, not just me, were feeling like, hey, I am out of my league here. Like, I am out of my depth. And these people are so much better than me at creating art. But I think something that's really great about art is it's individual, and you as the artist, you making that art makes it unique. And like Austin Kleon talks about it, it's like the fact that you make it makes it original to you, and it connects it to the rest of your work. You don't have to worry about like your style. The fact that you made it and you put in your life and who you are into that art makes that difference. And when talking about this with animation, there's two stories. And it's funny because I didn't want to make a podcast about these for the longest time because I'm like, I'm never going to be able to do them justice. But I realized that I was falling into kind of that perfectionism and a little bit of like imposter syndrome. Like, I can't do this. But Studio Ghibli films, they are so beautiful and they've really changed my life in a lot of ways. And there's two I think show these principles really well. One is Kiki's delivery service, which shows Artblock and Burnout super well, or creative block or writer's block, whatever you want to call it or name it. It shows it really well. And then one that I kind of just thought about, but Howl's Moving Castle shows kind of imposter syndrome really well. And we're going to get a little bit more into that. But with Artblock and Kiki's delivery service, she's basically she's a young witch, and she has this responsibility. Basically, she's reached the age that she gets to go out to a new town and kind of find out who she is, establish a place for herself, and figure out what kind of witch she is. Like, her mother's a witch, and she makes these really cool potions, and she has to go out and figure that out for herself. And she takes like this like hand-me-down broom and goes out on that adventure, and she has like a little radio on her broom as she's going, and she meets this witch who she already knows what she's gonna do. She's gonna like predict people's futures and do fortunes and stuff, and she's already figured it out. And she's like, dang, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like, and she gets there and she's like, hey, I can be a delivery girl. Like, I fly and I love flying. And it's kind of this idea of doing something that you love and getting paid for it, doing it for work. Sometimes it can change how you think about it. And she starts not liking flying as much because people that she's delivering to, they're not being super nice to her. She gets rained on, she gets sick, and she loses that ability to fly. And it shows, like, with art block or creative block, you feel like you lose that ability to create amazing things, or even just to create something. You're like, I can't even draw a stick figure. Like, I cannot do this. And with her, it takes her being able to rest and breathe, but also seeing someone in need of her help and realizing that even if she's not the most amazing witch, even if she hasn't totally figured out who she wants to be yet, she has these gifts and talents that she can use to help people. And I think it's done really well. And the music is amazing. It's just a beautiful movie. And there's like a talking cat too. And I don't know, it's really good.